Morning all. I had quite a dramatic game last night in Herts League. I was playing Mike Lexton, who's a very good player who I've had difficult games with in the past. Last night I kicked off with E4. I think I once beaten him with the English opening, but I thought I play E4, in the mood for that at the moment. He played the Sicilian defence. I played Nc3, which I've scored well recently with 2 wins in a row. So would this be a third? But he plays Nc6. I played the Grand Prix system. But I was thinking after Bishop G7 I should experiment really with Bishop B5, especially given David Rooms did actually play Bishop B5. But Bishop C4 I'll probably be more comfortable with and spend less time just tucking the bishop on A2. There's a practical decision. It's new territory, and there's some a lot of different ideas really. It's quite fundamentally different. So after Bishop B5 he played Knight D4, and I just assumed after castling he would take on B5, but actually he played E6. And I've looked this up on chessgames.com, and it's apparently not such a big deal if white plays E5 to try and block that bishop from the knight and threaten Knight D4. It's an interesting idea to play E5 here. Let's just engine check this position, because he didn't seem to think after the game E6 was that good. I'm just going to increase the number of engine lines here. I'll just get the board up a bit actually. So you can see those 2 lines clearly now, I think. Okay, so E5 seems to promise a slight advantage, but actually black can throw in A6 first, and say knight takes, queen takes, and now there's a move D5 to stop Knight E4 really, and this seems to be okay actually. Queen F2, it's okay for black because black's got that F5 perhaps. It seems to be a minimal advantage, and actually that matches the stats on chessgames.com. That E5 isn't that much to write home about here as a punishment, potential punishment for Knight D4. So that's the first point of note. Okay, so what I did was actually F5, which seems to be in black's favour. Let's turn that off for a moment for a bigger board. Okay, so it's a pawn sack, and I thought it would be quite dynamic, and he seemed to think it was quite good, but I'm not really sure. I think I was just a pawn down for not much at this point. I thought maybe I'm going to get some pressure, and also I thought, well, there must be a point of Bishop B5 here to do with E6 and to do with a pin. Surely that's the reason, maybe, that people take with Knight takes B5 and don't play the move E6. So I'm using up valuable time on this when really I could have played the Bishop C4 system instead of Bishop E5 if I'm having good results of it. It was like maybe an important match. Maybe experiments should be for other games, training games, on the ICC. So it's a shame that I don't know, I chose this because E6 is a bit of a surprise. I don't really think there's a major move against E6 here that I can think of. E6 seems to be a reasonable idea, as well as Knight takes B5. If Knight takes B5, this is what I was expecting, with an easier sort of game to play that I'm used to, D3, later Queen E1, etc. Hack attack time. But no, okay, so E6, and I wondered what I was doing here, and this is probably unsound. So he takes, and he takes again, and I thought vaguely, well, actually Knight E4, and I might actually be threatening in this position now G4. So actually, if A6, then maybe G4 to try and get Knight D6 in. So that was the idea, the immediate idea. But he doesn't do that. He plays Knight F6, so I'm starting to be in a uncomfortable position with this bishop actually being a bit silly on b5. It's just like an exploitable target for tempo. If I want to sort of go here, there's going to be a6 and b5. But on the other hand, you know, I don't really want to retreat this. I don't want to like double my pawns. I don't want to move it back. That would be just horrendous. So what do I do with that knight? I've got to support that knight first before I do anything. I thought, well, the main benefit of that, if he does take, I get another tempo attacking that knight. But he kicks my bishop. Bishop a4, now b5 again. Bishop b3, and it's been a bit of a disaster so far. Black's actually significantly better at move 12. So the experimental opening has really backfired here. Bishop b5. Maybe it's important to read the book on it at first. Someone was asking me about, I don't know, Ponziani recently. I said, well, you know, read about it first before playing it. And unfortunately, I haven't taken my own advice here. Black's almost clearly better off the c4 according to this analysis. c4, and it's not good. It's not good. We had a quick look at this sort of stuff, and you know, he's got g file here. He's got, you know, maybe check and castle queenside. You know, let's just demonstrate that. Say bishop f4. Say rook g8. You know, just black's just doing really well. So anyway, it's not an ideal position. Nice bishops, nice g5. It's all a bit backfired. That pawn sacrifice, you know, here is just black's doing great. Maybe, you know, check, castles, maybe. Okay, maybe that's a bit over optimistic. a4. All right, but anyway, you get the picture that black's doing well. So he actually just sacked a pawn though. In this position, he went a bit crazy maybe with d5. But it's got a brilliant idea to it that these knights are actually quite dangerous. So I take the pawn, and he plays queen c7, and the point's starting to be revealed. It didn't really dawn on me what the exact point was here. If his intention was to try and exploit me playing d4 by playing knight d4 or something, and then moving knight, but then I thought, hang on, the queen's attacking the bishop, so that can't be possible. So d4, and I really thought knight d4 is not on here. If knight takes d4, queen c5, so I thought knight d4 is not on, but actually now after knight g4, knight g4, he's on h2, he's on d4. Have I just fallen into a horrible trap here? If I move, now he's threatening knight d4, but I play a simple move, just sacking the exchange here. I just play c3. I don't mind losing the exchange because he hasn't castled. So this simple move he kind of overlooked apparently. So I just give up the exchange, queen d3, and I'm looking forward to knight g5s again and simple hack attack stuff. So he takes the exchange, so both of those horrible knights have gone. Fine. Okay, so I was actually going to mention that one of the themes of the game to look out for, I should have perhaps mentioned that at the start, was the idea of gates actually and emotional attachment. To do the weakness of the last move theme. How do we understand the weakness of the last move? There's something really horrible that happens later, but I just want to prepare you maybe for the concept that if a gate's open, you can go through it, and it hurts. If you try and go through a gate that's closed, it hurts. When the opponent plays a move which carries a weakness, it's like the gate's been opened momentarily. But here, sometimes during a game, you're not sometimes keen to exploit that opportunity of a wide open gate. And in this position, something's happened. I've got this piece here across in the opponent's territory on the 5th rank, and it's restricting this bishop many times. It seems a wonderful knight actually, this knight here. And maybe this is my problem with long games, that I start having emotional attachments with pieces. Now I want to put the two concepts together. Well, the weakness of the last move, or the open and closed gate, whatever you prefer, it's the same thing. sometimes a move creates a weakness. On the very last move the opponent's made creates a weakness. Now, of course, we want to win with our own brilliance, but that's not always possible. Sometimes it requires the opponent's blunder. So a wide open gate, I suppose, is like a blunder. You can sometimes exploit the blunder of the opponent's last move. There's different ways of thinking about it, but factor in emotional attachments. I started going fond of this knight, actually. Now, if he castles, the knight already shows its beauty a bit. Knight g5, say f5, then e6 will drop. So the knight's already quite potent in variations here. We can engine check this one to make sure knight castles is a disaster. f5, and this beautiful knight is involved. So the knight on c5, I'm growing an emotional attachment for that knight on g5, and it's probably worse the longer the game is, this kind of effect. That I wouldn't really want to give up the knight. It's showing its use. It's attractive. It's on a dark square. It's restricting the bishop. Okay, it's putting pressure continually on the black position. But anyway, he suppresses this knight g5 with h6. And I wonder here, okay, I'm the exchange down. I've got sort of attractive options, actually. Even a4, just to try and, you know, use the king diagonal here. But actually I spot another idea. I don't know if this is the best idea. It looked pretty dangerous. Queen e3 move, maybe. Okay, technically queen d2, but no, I played an interesting idea. I played knight h4 because I spotted the idea of knight g6 to actually get the king in the center for a disaster on f7, and he didn't really know, perhaps he didn't really play the best response. He played actually queen e7, which basically allows knight g6. I wonder what technically actually the best move was here. Bishop e5 apparently is given. Clearly I overlooked that, taking and then queen c5, and I lose my precious thing over there. So that would be good, I suppose, getting out of harm's way. Knight g6, take. So technically, of course, computers can not worried about that, knight g6. But he blunders then with queen e7. So yeah, there is a weakness of this last move, that I'm not only going to g6, I'm forking queen and king. So no problem there, exploiting some weaknesses of the last move, knight g6, and I get my exchange back with advantage here. So bishop takes h8. There's a question here how to exploit this f7. So one shot could be queen h7, but he probably just plays queen g7, I thought, and that'll be the end of that. But actually there is already a very dangerous move, which I wonder if you can spot. So basically queen h7 is dangerous in principle. There's a move which maybe would have secured a big advantage here. Now if I give you 20 seconds, can you try and find it? If you might want to pause the video. So 20 seconds starting from now. Okay. The move apparently is bishop takes d5, but I want to turn on an engine just to validate that, because there's a few implications of bishop d5 to cover here. Okay, bishop d5. or is it even in this position? Have I even got the right position? Sorry, I might have the wrong position here. No, he just takes there. That'd be a piece blunder. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Ah, it's not this position. For some reason, I thought, well, if Queen takes D5, then this would be perhaps okay. Queen H7, but he's not obliged to take on D5. So a bit of a naughty trick there. Sorry, I should have checked this position first. No, there isn't really a crusher here at all. So what I did actually is a simple move. So don't give yourself any points for that. I've just lured you into an unsound p-sack. No, I played a simple move, Queen F3, which isn't spectacular, but it does cause some sort of concession. He plays actually, so give yourself some points if you play Queen F3. There wasn't anything there, but so Rook A7 defending F7. And I don't want the Queen going back to G6 particularly if the Queen was attacked at some point. So I played Bishop C2. Which also has the implication that if something like Queen D2, there might be Bishop G6 on the cards. And actually he played Queen D2, but I thought there might be a slight snag with Bishop G6 here. I wonder if you can spot it, because it seems to be a logical culmination of these guys on the F file. Can you spot the slight problem with Bishop G6 here? If I give you 20 seconds, so this, I think this works. I'm pretty sure this works, but try and spot a good move for black here, starting from now. Okay, even though these pieces are out of the game, he has got these pieces in the game. In fact, I think Bishop takes D4. Let's just check this again. And yeah, Bishop takes D4 isn't actually that brilliant for black, but there's not much else, otherwise F7 drops. It minimises the advantage anyway, so it's probably the best move in the situation to do this. Go in for this. It's only a small advantage for white. Okay, so Bishop D4 is to be avoided. It does represent a threat to win that knight on C5, which so instead there's a much better move, just exploiting maybe black's position, but I didn't play the absolute best one. It seems Queen G3 is a bit of a crusher here, because it now threatens, it invites actually Bishop D4, even Queen takes, because I think Queen G8 is absolutely crushing. Unfortunately, I didn't play that, but this would be nearly quite crushing. Queen G3. Say Queen takes C2. Queen G8 is actually a mate in 6. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so Queen G8 is to be avoided. So say Bishop D4 again here. It's not as good here. Queen F2, piece up. So basically that would have been a great move, but no, I play a suboptimal move here. Possibly a bit tired, maybe I've been overdoing it with YouTube stuff. In this position, a suboptimal move just against this Bishop takes D4 threat. I play Bishop D3, and okay, I have got still Queen G3 on the cards. He plays actually rook e7, which allows that beautiful queen g3 which I play. So actually at this point I'm evaluated about almost 2 pawns up. I've got these huge great big threats, and I thought this is a really nice position. How can I mess this one up? Well, it's always possible. So king f8, and I look really hard here for, you know, a winning tactical blow. I thought I discovered one. I played queen b8 forcing rook e8 because I thought now there'll be a subtle but crushing move in the form of queen c7, because if rook e7, you know, there's rook takes c8. I completely overlooked the one move he does have, f5, and in fact in this position, so f5 holds that f7 square without too much damage. In this position, actually, here, apparently there's a real crusher in this position. I wonder if you can spot it if I give you 10 seconds here, starting from now. Okay, bishop g6. This would be potentially quite crushing. So say, okay, bishop d4. This isn't too good for black. Black will be getting mated here apparently in 6. There's a 6 move mate. Although it looks as though my back row is weak, what I have is actually queen f4. I completely overlooked this variation anyway. But there's a threat now of rook g7. Also the queen protects c1. And this is devastating for black in this position. But no, I didn't see this variation. Well, computers are picking up so easily on all this stuff, all these tactics. But no, I went in for queen c7 thinking that was brilliant. So f5, and you'll notice, you know, I've still got this emotional attachment to this knight on c5, and he's weakened actually his dark squares quite a bit. So this bishop is quite valuable in circumstances. If that's ever lost, then the dark squares are much weaker. I also notice though that what if, you know, I managed to swing a rook here? That'd be quite dangerous for the black king, because then there might be stuff like this. I thought, well, the problem is this queen g5. Okay, so I thought I'd solve that queen g5 problem. I play h4, so I've still got this idea of simply swinging a rook in. He plays check to my delight, and I think it's like nearly all over here. Bishop f6. Okay, attacking the pawn. I gain a tempo on his queen to swing the rook in. I just thought it's nearly all over now. Rook g3. I thought, how does he defend queen h7 and rook g8? Now at this stage, say this knight was a pig you'd been rearing, and you unfortunately you named it. The pig became part of the family. It's no longer, you don't really want to use it for bacon sandwiches anymore. Okay, so I've got an emotional attachment for that knight. Now let's put this idea of emotional attachment together with the weakness of the last move. The opponent plays a move which basically opens the gate. It creates a weakness of the last move. A gate that was firmly shut, i.e., I'll show you the gate that's firmly shut in this position, is queen f4 is answerable with bishop g7. So this gate is closed at the moment. The watchkeeper is this bishop. So a gate open and closed in the current position. And okay, his next move is bishop e7, which essentially opens that gate, that there's a possibility now of queen f4. Now if you came to this position from scratch, say in a book, just this position without the history of the game, probably there'll be an advantage there that you look at the position from scratch and think Queen F4 is a powerful move. Unfortunately, if you've been travelling through this game for like 2-3 hours and you've got an emotional attachment for this knight, actually you're not keen to give up that knight and use the gate that is now wide open from that last move. The weakness of the last move, clearly Bishop E7, clearly Queen F4, and okay, you give up the knight, but is it a big deal? Well, it comes down to calculation, but as I say, I didn't really want to give up the knight just in case this king chase didn't work. I think I visualized something like this, and I thought this wasn't that convincing. That actually, this sort of position wasn't that convincing, and I didn't really properly investigate actually here the true power of Queen F4. In fact, there's another gate wide open after Queen F4, Bishop takes C5, that even the check is not actually needed first. In fact, just D takes C5 here is very powerful in this position. Just marking out D6. So I don't know, one's favourite pig has been given up for a bacon sandwich here. D takes C5, beautiful knight, gone, that I've adored throughout the game, just being used for double pawns and controlling D6. But actually, in this position, it turns out D takes C5, which is another, so there's two gates wide open now. Remember, he's weakened all his dark squares. D takes C5 represents, from an engine point of view, and I'll show you this. Yes, you'll be shocked. D takes C5, losing the precious knight, is like +9. There's no, there's no defense for the black king here. Look at all the dark squares, they've been torn to shreds. King E7 doesn't really help. There's rook G7, the pawn's marking D6. Forget forget Queen H6. This is so much more powerful. With King E7, just there's no need for the queen still eyeing these squares. So just this simple recapture is absolutely crushing. All the gates are wide open now. So the only thing that had stopped the exploitation of the gate being wide open with Bishop E7, as far as I can tell from honest emotional audit of this game, was a slight emotional attachment to the knight on C5, not wanting to give it up, not wanting to concretely analyse Queen F4. And maybe this is why there's some mystery that sometimes, I don't know, in longer games I form these emotional attachments to pieces, when really all pieces on the chessboard, like war, their resources, like I saw a film War Horse recently, and everyone's on both sides is developing this relationship with this horse. It's got a beautiful horse with big eyes, but in context of war, it was stated during the film, don't name the horse. Whatever you do, don't name the horse, because the horse is like pulling all this artillery. It's going to die. You don't want emotional attachments. Well, actually, this knight, what's another name for a knight? It's a horse, actually. In fact, I didn't mean that to be so topical. This is like War Horse. Unfortunately, I've fallen in love with War Horse throughout the course of this game. This knight on C5, I love this knight on C5. I don't even want to analyse Queen F4. But if you came to this position from scratch without the game, there'll be less bias of caring about the knight on C5. It had been so heroic earlier in those variations behind the scenes. But here it has to be given up. It weakens the dark squares. That pawn in its place controls D6. It's perfectly logical in this position to give up the knight. Restricting the bishop is not such a big deal, really. Although the knight restricts the bishop potentially can be liberated, if not careful, across this diagonal, and the knight to be tied down to restrict the bishop is piece for piece. it's not like tying down loads of pieces, it's just this bishop, but the bishop is almost like virtually tying down the knight if the knight's refusing to move. This Warhorse needs to be given up. It's a good film anyway, Warhorse. But emotional attachments during a game, the longer the game, so I'm not talking about online 5-minute games, the longer the game, the more likely this bias is going to happen. So it's getting away from an objective analysis that actually the gate has been left wide open with bishop e7, for being able to play bishop g7, because he had to shield against queen h7. The position is going downhill here by absolute force after rook g3. This threat has to be dealt with, queen h7 and rook g8. I really thought it was all over. And the second surprise was this bishop e7. I didn't even... Initially I thought, oh blimey, that does stop it. But clearly the opportunity is queen f4, the gate wide open, and the only thing stopping me was an adoration for this knight on c5. But I think there's another weakness. Hold on. Ingeniously, I think, well, there's another weakness to this move. This diagonal. Actually, this diagonal. What about queen e5? And I'm getting a bit tired at this stage, and I'm almost blundering. That would just blunder the entire game, queen e5. It would just represent a piece blunder. He would just take, and then take on c5. That queen on e1 is quite functional. And not only that, the queen on e1 continually has docking computer implications. Queen takes g3, very forcing move. Queen g1, queen h1. But the significant one to keep noting all the time, as far as a docking computer perspective, is queen takes g3. Docking computer, forcing moves, looking at forcing moves as high priority. And the docking computer, as well as emphasising tactical vulnerabilities, I think it also emphasises a detachment, an emotional detachment from all pieces to see their functional value. So being able to give up, a queen sacrifice is another. But here, it's Warhorse that I'm in love with in this position after bishop e7. But I sort of think, well, there's another weakness. Okay, how do I get in queen e5? I try and solve this other problem. How do I get the move queen e5 in? Because this looks pretty crushing. Without allowing queen takes e5. So I come up with a seemingly absolutely brilliant move. I wonder if you can guess the move I came up with. And please be honest in the video comments. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to find this apparently brilliant move to solve the problem of how you get in queen e5 to exploit this weakness of the last move in particular, that there's a gate open on this diagonal as well. So there's two gates kind of left open. One's more kind of blatant, if you can try and get on this diagonal for g7 and h8, and the other is sort of seems to be a bit more subtle, that there's no bishop g7. Okay, and you have to give up the knight. But the move I played here, I'm thinking about e5. Of course I don't want to bias you. Well, I already have. I've shown how destructive queen f4 is. But are you tempted at all? Okay, let's assume queen f4 is a good move. So forget queen f4. What other brilliant move do you think there might be in the position here to do with e5? So if I give you 20 seconds starting from now, what do you think here? Okay, time to blow the entire position. I play knight e4. Knight e4. So I'm trying to interfere with the opponent's control of e5. I'm maintaining Warhorse. I'm not letting it be turned into doubled pawns. Warhorse, I've grown an affection with this war knight on c5, but it's going to be the final, coup de grace, final blow to interfere with the queen, protecting e5. Now, if f takes e, then queen f4 is is like mating, you know, be mate. But so he plays, of course, D takes E4. So I play Queen E5. Unfortunately, there's a slight snag with this whole concept. I had been calculating, you know, escape plans with Rook D8, which don't work out that well, because not Queen G7 where he might escape. And I was hoping he'd be tempted for Rook D8, but no, check, sorry. And now something like Rook G7 is probably mating. So Rook G8, you know, that'll be mating. So actually, there's a better move for black in this position. I wonder if you can spot it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So if I give you 10 seconds starting from now, how does black successfully defend this position? Yeah, he just okay, well done if you spotted it. Queen takes G3 check, docking computer, forcing move, and all of a sudden this is bad news. Bad news. He's got enough for the queen here. He takes on D3 as well. If he unravels this lot, I'm going to be slaughtered. And this pawn to deal with. You know, if he gets in moves like this, then G2 is going to be under fire. I play check and just start remorsing during the game for the next 10 minutes. What have I done? I know I've just let him off the hook. Majorly let him off the hook in this game. So I just offer a draw here. I don't want to risk losing this position. Well, I take first and then we get a draw. I just offer a draw. Engine point of view here, it actually is about equal. Comes to 0. Great. Okay, so you could argue, and I was hoping this video annotation would act as in a therapeutic way, that maybe you could argue that there were 2 gates left open by Bishop E7 and I chose the wrong gate. You might think, what, you know, why did I choose the wrong gate? I chose this gate rather than this one from this Bishop E7. Why did I not want Bishop C5? I believe it's because of an emotional attachment. That's the only explanation I could find, trying to be honest about this game, that I didn't want to objectively work out Queen F4. In this structure, it's like a Dutch defense structure. Look how many pawns he's got on light squares. Why does he want to give up his bishop on dark square? It's a strategic disaster to do that usually in a Dutch defense. Stonewall. So Queen F4, you know, doesn't actually have to commit to a decentralizing move. Queen H6. After Bishop takes C5, losing the war horse, okay, which I've fallen in love with during this game. D takes C5 is such a powerful move. In fact, how much more powerful than Queen takes H6? Queen takes H6 is only, well, we have to increase the number of lines actually. It's even dropped off the horizon. D takes C5 is the most powerful. I don't know what this other stuff is about. A4? Why on earth is A4 winning as well? So even the move A4 is winning. How many moves are winning in this position? Let's just check. In this position, all of these moves apparently, including Queen H6, so we're talking a spectrum from +2 to +8. That's just wonderful, isn't it? So in this position, don't tell me there's about 6 million wins. There's also in this position other ways to get to the king here. Bishop takes f5 is one, tearing open this bridge. So queen c6, and that gets to the king. So this will be getting to the king. Okay. Oh, sorry, bishop g5. Let's choose bishop g5 here. All right. So, but no, the absolute most crushing continuation is just simply coldly giving up the knight after queen f4, and just not decentralizing with queen h6. This is a bit of a chase here. Actually, king there doesn't even probably work because queen c7's mate. If king c6, this is actually starting to look what I looked at. So there's another move here which is absolutely crushing, which I totally miss as well. Queen a7. Actually, that's got the implication of queen b6. Which is good as well, but there's also a4, even better. But so always, of course, engines, they have no emotional attachment to anything on the chessboard. If you're looking at the position from scratch without having played in the game, you've got no emotional attachment. If you happen to be in the game for several hours and you really like that knight, that horse for another name, the layman's term, the war horse, then maybe you're not going to be analysing this that greatly in this position to give up the knight and just simply recapture. But objectively, this is the absolutely crushing thing to do. There's just no escape for the black king. So instead, I just choose knight e4 and okay, so disaster. I just completely missed queen g3. To be honest, I had about 5 minutes and about 1 minute left at this point before the move 35 time control. We're approaching move 35 for that German adjudication stage in the Herts League. So maybe I also wanted to finish the game off quickly, and I really thought he would have completely overlooked this move as well. I had this belief, this is just too brilliant. He's only got a minute left. Surely he's missed this idea of queen e5, but he just happens to have this fantastic resource. Queen takes g3 check. Okay, wonderful. So we could do a quick overview and summary, but I think there's this point. The main point I wanted to make in relation to the subject of the weakness of the last move, which I've talked about in other videos. Morris Ashley, The Secret of Chess, he talks about it. Maybe it's expanding on the idea. The weakness of the last move is a bit like a gate being opened and closed every time the opponent moves or you move. Opening and closing a gate. You don't want to walk through a gate, it hurts. Computers use gates. That's the fundamentals of electricity. Ones and noughts going through gates. There's AND gates, OR gates, NOT gates. Gates are a fantastic concept in themselves. Very simple concept. And if you look at the weakness of the opponent's last move, it's almost like opening a gate. But here, I guess I could let myself off that there were two gates open, h6 and this diagonal. So basically this diagonal and this diagonal, one's bishop e7. So two gates, both to objectively analyse. And the interference of the analysis was this emotional attachment. But when you're in the middle of a war, and chess is like a game of war, then emotional attachments are not to be formed with your horses, with your war horses. I formed an emotional attachment with my war horse, and didn't just want to give it up just simply to bishop takes c5. No, I wanted to give it up spectacularly, and basically that affected the whole game result. But you know, he gave up his war horses, and I was pleased to see the back of them just for losing the exchange. And Then I gave up my F3 warhorse to get the F file or win back the exchange. That was fine. But it was this one, unfortunately, I was developing a love affair. This last remaining horse on the board, or as we call the knight. Because also it's restricting like the bad French defense bishop, you know, which is something I would dread to have, this bad French defense bishop. So there's an emotional attachment to this knight anyway, believe it or not, and leading to a simple win just in retrospect. Mind you, engines, you know, I don't know what we can say about engines. They're just cold, aren't they? They don't have any emotions. Of course, they'll find the best move. They'll look at Queen G3s all the time in the millionth of a second, and so of course wouldn't dream of playing Knight E4. So, but I did. So here, Queen F4. Objectively, there's no defence. Just one brief look at this position to see. Look, is there any defence? The gate's wide open on this thing. You'll see. Okay, apart from bishop takes c5. Let's say bishop f6. You know, losing that pawn is not good, and the queen can actually go over here and come into the b6 square. But it's not particularly hot, this position. And as soon as bishop takes h4 occurs, I was wondering about rook g7 here. Is that winning? Yes, that it probably is. But there's also a mate in 4 check. I just want to prove the gates. The gate was wide open after bishop e7. 2 gates. So the point is, how do you explore the gates without emotional baggage or emotional attachments? If you got anything from that's brilliant. It's a bit verbose. It's early in the morning. You know, I just feel it's another game messed up, but there's a reason for it in there somewhere. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.